Let us pray. Oh God, we are persuaded, constrained to worship you because you are a God of boundless love. So today as we open your word, may this word comfort anyone who may be distressed. May it also distress those who may be too comfortable. Because we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. Black History Month has been officially recognized in Canada since 1996. Although some years ago I had to show someone by going online that this is true because they didn't believe this was so. And they tried to tell me that Black History Month would somehow segregate and separate and confuse. But when I showed it to them, then they had to apologize because they realized that indeed Black History Month is Canadian. Black History Month is a time to honor the contributions and the struggles of peoples of African descent. It is also a time when we will not just try to compare or contrast. We don't try to compare and contrast one race of people against another, but it's the time to thank God that even though we have been marginalized, dehumanized over the centuries, that as a people, we still rise. And even though we have been beaten and bruised and drawn and quartered, we still rise. It's the time to acknowledge the fact that we have not arrived where we've come by chance. It is time for us to acknowledge the fact that we have not arrived at our privileged positions all by ourselves, but that we, the people of God and the people of color, that we, with the help of other human beings, we definitely have had the help of God, and so we still rise. I'm reminded of the story of the phoenix. Now in Greek mythology, and also in the Talmud, now the Talmud is the body of Jewish civil and ceremonial laws and legends which comprise the Mishnah and the Gemara. And so in the Greek mythology and in the Talmud, the phoenix is a long-lived bird that is cyclically regenerated or born again. It's associated with the sun. And a phoenix obtains new life by arising from the ashes of its predecessor. It means that he or she has arisen from flames as a winner, beating all life challenges and defeating hard times, coming from falling to rising to winning. Therefore, the phoenix is a symbol of rebirth from the ashes of the past. It also represents the victory of life over death. And so it sometimes is looked upon as representing immortality. So Black History Month, just to set the tone, affords us the opportunity to reflect on how, as a people, our ancestors, through the years, have gone through the horrors of what is called the Middle Passage. And yet, we still rise. Now, when you think about it, history is replete with stories of the Middle Passage. Now, the Middle Passage is the forced voyage of enslaved Africans across the Atlantic Ocean to what is called the New World. It was a one-way ticket on this triangular trade route that took goods such as knives and guns and ammunition and cotton cloth and tools and brass dishes from Europe to Africa, Africans to work as slaves in America and the West Indies, and items, mostly raw materials produced on plantations, sugar and rice and tobacco and indigo and rum and cotton, and these were taken back to Europe. And from about 1518 into the middle 19th century, millions of African men, women, and children were made to take a 21 to 90-day journey or voyage aboard some grossly overcrowded sailing ships manned by crews mostly from Great Britain, the Netherlands, and Portugal and France. So what were these slave captains doing? Well, as they went to the Guinea coast, also called the Slave Coast. For a month or sometimes up to a year, they would try to get their cargoes filled between 150 to 600 persons on these slave ships. And while at anchor and after the departure from Africa, those aboard the ships were exposed to almost the most hostile conditions. They were in continuous dangers, including raids at ports by hostile tribes. There were epidemics, attacks by pirates or enemy ships, and bad weather. And although these events affected the ship's crews as well as the enslaved, those who were enslaved and chained, especially the men chained to each other, suffered greatly. They had to cope with things like physical and sexual abuse, psychological abuse at the hands of their captors. Despite, or perhaps in part because of the conditions aboard the ship, some of these Africans who survived the initial hours of captivity revolted, as you can imagine. They said that there were perhaps about 55 different big revolts that took place during this time. So, male slaves were kept constantly shackled to each other or to the deck to prevent mutiny. So as we look at this population of black men, women, and children, as they were carried along, they were forced to live in crowded compartments in these ships. Some spaces were just about 6 feet long, 16 inches wide, and about 3 feet high. And so they were in these crowded conditions, unable to stand erect or turn over. Many slaves died in this position. The middle passage was not an easy passage. In the daytime, weather permitting, the slaves were brought on top of the deck and they were supposed to do dancing. Dancing was simply jumping up and down in one spot to get some exercise. And at this time, some captains insisted that the sleeping quarters were to be scraped and swabbed by the crew. And so they were cleaning the quarters while these slaves were on top, trying to get some sun, if possible, and to do some dancing. But in spite of the deep pit of dehumanizing slavery, many of our forefathers survived, and so we still rise. Yes. Unfortunately, some of us are still enslaved. We walk around in a mental fog. Our minds are still enslaved. But I'm here today to say to each one of us, whether you are part of the greatest generation, born between 1910 and 1924, or the silent generation, born between 1925 and 1945, or the baby boomers generation, born between 1946 and 1954, or Generation X, or sometimes called the baby bust generation, born between 1965 and 1979, or the Xennials, born between 75 and 85, or the Millennials, born between 1980 and 1994, or Generation Z, between 1995 and 2012. Or you may be one of the very small ones here today, the Generation Alpha, born between 2013 and 2015. I want to share with you something that the late, great Robert Lester Marley, better known to some of us as Bob Marley, he said this many years ago, and this is still true. Old pirates, yes, they rob I. Sold I to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit. But my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. So then he says, won't you help me sing these songs of freedom? Because all I ever had, redemption songs. And so Bob says to you, and he says to me today, emancipate yourselves from mental freedom. Yes. Mental slavery, rather. None of us can free our minds. Have no fear of atomic energy, because none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill a vow. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? Because all I ever had, redemption songs. But you know, long before Bob Marley wrote that, Paul, in his counsel to young Timothy, in 2 Timothy 1, verse 7, said this, for God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind. to 36. He says, Jesus turned to the Jews and who had claimed to believe in him. He said, if you stick with this, living out what I tell you, you are my disciples for sure. Then you will experience for yourselves the truth, and the truth will set you free. Surprised, they said, but we are descendants of Abraham. We've never been slaves to anyone. How can you say the truth will set you free? Jesus said, I tell you most solemnly that anyone who chooses a life of sin is trapped in a dead-end life and is in fact a slave. A slave is a transient who can't come and go at will. So he says, the Son, though, has an established position, the run of the house. Therefore, if the Son sets you free, then you are what, everybody? Free indeed. And I declare to us today at Toronto East that we need to rise above the expectations of the declarations or what people say about us as a generation of people who come through slaves, and we must rise above our situation. Yes. I want to listen to these powerful excerpts from the book Don't Quit in the Pit by Danette Crawford. She says, on any given day, we find ourselves on a peak, in a pit, or somewhere between. We love to remain on the peaks of life, those times of extreme joy and gladness. Unfortunately, though a lot of people spend too much of their time in the pit, whether it's a pit of emotional despair, financial hardship, mental anguish, physical pain, or something else. What's even more unfortunate is that many people park in the pit and never get out. Discouraged and defeated, they decide to remain where they are instead of determining to escape their pit and climb the next peak. I say to you this morning, my young friends and my older friends, you can't afford to park in the pit. Your life, my life, our ultimate destiny depends on our determination to trust God and get out of the pit. That's why I'm coming here today on this first Sabbath of Black History Month to tell you that if you feel like you're in a pit, do not despair. There's hope for those who are parking in the pit. You are not the first person to find yourself in a pit. Because we read there in our scripture reading in Genesis about a man named Job. They call him Joseph. In the book of Genesis, which is about this young favorite son. Now, if you look carefully, about 11 chapters in this book are devoted to the life of Joseph. So read it sometime. Joseph, that pit looked like a dark, dreary, dismal death. But it was truly a path to the palace. You see, when you read the story here, it tells us about how Joseph was the favorite son. He was loved by his father. He had everything going for him. His father even made him a special coat which made him stand out among the brothers. Joseph was the youngest, but he was a dreamer. We heard a lot about dreamers this past week. He was dreaming about what would happen, and he thought about how he dreamt that all his brothers would bow down to him. Even his mother and father would bow down to him, and his brothers thought, you must be crazy. You don't expect us and your parent to bow down to you. And you know, you find another story almost similar to this when you read in the book of Acts about a man called Paul. Read it sometime in Acts chapter 27. Paul, respected as the Jewish leader, he was here caught in the storm, and Paul's pit was in the form of a ship tossed on a raging storm, and everybody wanted to jump off the boat, but God told Paul, don't abandon ship. You're going to come through this. And so just as Paul needed a rope of hope from a ship which was being tossed on the seas, Joseph needed a rope of hope from that pit. And their rope of hope was for the same that is available for you and for me today, and that rope of hope is called the Bible. I believe that in God's word, we have what it takes to get out of the pit. I'm going to share that with you today. You see, the Bible provides a map to guide us out of any and every pit that we find ourselves in. I like the way David puts it in Psalm 34, verse 19. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. In other words, we will all experience pits in our lives. You agree? Yeah. If you haven't yet been in a pit, it's coming. And some of you have come through your pits. We must know what God says about the pits that we're in. For our forefathers, the pit was down there in that slave ship. They were stuck. Many died. Some survived, yes. But I want to suggest to you today that the Bible is right when it says if you know the truth is going to set you free. And the truth, my fellow believers, is not just what's written in the Word. The truth, the Bible says, I am the way, Jesus says. The truth and the life. Truth is a person. Truth is not a set of 28 fundamental beliefs. We must get to know the person behind these beliefs. And when we get to know Jesus, and he takes us and he tells us we are his own, we can overcome and get out of any pit. See, in every pit, there is potential. The good news is that pits are temporary. God promised us in his word that he will deliver us from affliction. And so the rope of hope, God's word, will never disappoint us. And I declare to you today that the life of Joseph demonstrates to us that when you are a dreamer, there are others who are seeking to throw you and your dreams in a pit. And not only will they put you in the pit, but there'll be a wall around you. Just have to listen to the political debates, the rhetoric coming from our neighbors south of us. Lots of dreamers, lots of walls. Next time you read the book of Beginnings or the book of Genesis, just read those 13 chapters, I should say, which cover the life of Genesis. 13, I said 11, 13. Joseph was important to God, and he's important to us. Compare the life of Joseph with the life of Jesus. We're talking about we still rise. Joseph was sent to his father, by his father to his brothers who falsely accused him. Jesus was sent to his brethren by his father, and he too was rejected. Joseph lost his cloak. Jesus lost his robe. Joseph was sold in slavery for 20 pieces of silver. That was the going price of a slave. Jesus was sold by Judas for 30 pieces of silver. It was the going price for a slave in Jesus' day. Silver signifies atonement or redemption. Just read up in Exodus 30 or Titus 2, Matthew 26, you'll find those. Joseph was not recognized by his brothers the first time they saw him in Egypt. Jesus was not recognized as he who was to save the world when he came to his brethren. John 1:11 says he came to his own, and his own did what? They received him not. Make no mistake about it. The things that Joseph went through, you and I will go through as long as we stand for right. Joseph and Jesus were mistreated, accused falsely. Joseph was thrown into the spit with no chance of parole. You know, some of our young people today are still being thrown in prisons for things they have not done. When I first came to Canada, one of the first detention centers I visited was the Don Jail. And I was actually visiting church members' child. And as I visited there, or when I went to Kingston, the prison capital of Canada, to visit, or wherever you went, you find there that there are some people who say, I'm not guilty. But I reflect back in the years when I pastored in England. I remember on Monday mornings I used to go to the magistrate's court just to listen to what was being said about our black young people. And at that time, in those years gone by, they used to have a law called the SUS law, S-U-S. You could be charged with being a suspected person just by standing outside looking in somebody's car and admiring it. And the police would just nab you and say you were looking in with the intention to break it. And it was just a policeman's word against yours. And so many of our young black men got a record because when they went to court, the judge gave them a suspended sentence. But something on their record. And so they were being put in a pit. Don't get me wrong. There's some of our young people, men and women, who are in jail for things they've done. Yes. And so it must be said that they're serving the time because they committed the crime. But as I look back at my pastoral ministry, I can see and I remember some of these young men and young women who suffered because they were being thrown in that pit with no chance of parole. And I'm here today to say that as a church and as a people, we must seek justice until it rolls down like a river and righteousness like a mighty stream. Joseph was patient. He waited for God through his trials. And one thing you and I must remember in our struggle is that when you are down to nothing, God is always up to something. Remember that every event in your life is known by God and will contribute to your palace experience after the pit. Think about Joseph. If his brothers never threw him into a pit, if the Midianites who took him to Egypt missed the trail and were half a mile off the course, Joseph would never have been sold to Potiphar's house. It seems to me that God allows us to have some pit experiences before he can make us enjoy the palace experience. See, don't put me in Genesis 39. See, it's very interesting. And I'm going to just run through this quickly. He says in Genesis 39 from verse 1, Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. And then it says, the Lord was with Joseph. And he was a successful man. And he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. I've noticed something about success. I've noticed that some people are greedy when it comes to success. They want to take it all. And some people are jealous of those who are successful. I was in a bank one time and I was all dressed up, and my suit, and the gentleman was behind me, and he was just dressed casually. And he said to me, you look like you're dressed for success. And I said to him, you look like you're successful already. And some people, when you're successful, they want to, somehow prevent it. Or they say, I wonder how they got their money. And when you think about success, the Bible says that Joseph was successful. And because of his success, there are some people who are not too happy with it. But the master was happy. He says, the master saw that the Lord was with Joseph, and the Lord made all he did to prosper in his hand. Joseph had come out of the pit. And he was now there with the master's palace. Here was Joseph. Joseph found favor in his sight and served him. Then he made him overseer of his house, and all that he had, he put under his authority. So it was from the time that he had made him overseer of his house, and all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house of Joseph for Joseph's sake. Notice that. You get blessed, the people you work for get blessed. You get blessed, the people in your hospital get blessed. You get blessed, and the people who you go to in the supermarket get blessed. Everybody gets blessed because God has blessed you. And God makes you a blessing. Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance. Now this is where the problem begins. Nothing wrong with being handsome, gentlemen. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast longing eyes on Joseph. And she said, come to bed with me. Now, I want to imagine that she didn't just say this the first time she saw Joseph. It wasn't love at first sight. She'd been looking and lingering. Like Eve when she was there in the garden, long desired, and she was just, it's often you hear about women lusting after men. You often say it's the men after the women. But it works both ways. Am I right? All right, you're good. And so Joseph was now being lured into something by the devil himself. Because he put it in Mrs. Potiphar's heart to try and have an affair with Joseph. But the Bible says he refused and said to his master's wife, look, my master does not know what is with me in the house. And he has committed all that he has to my hand. There is no one greater in this house than I, nor has he kept back anything from me but you, because you are his wife. How can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? You know, I often think about how challenging it must be for a handsome young man to be in the presence of a beautiful woman. I can imagine Mrs. Potiphar, you know, she was a beautiful woman. And Joseph was a handsome man. And what prevented him? Single and virile. And, you know, here he was, the man to be desired. But he said to her, sorry. Not only did he say that, but the Bible says that when she tried to grab him, he fled. The Bible is right. Flee from sin. Don't argue with it. You know, I often tease some of my girlfriends, you know. They say when a young man comes up to say things in your ear that you don't like, you say, you know, he touches you on the shoulder, he says, please, please, please. And then he puts his arm around your waist and says, don't. And then maybe he touches your leg and he says, stop. And you keep saying, please, don't stop. Until you stay. After all, you begin to say, please don't stop. See, Joseph did not allow that to happen. And the Bible said he fled, because here is Joseph. See, he knew what it was like to be in a pit. And to come to this position where now he's going to get, not put in another pit, but he'll be head me off. And so he told a lie, she told a lie on him, but listen, Joseph got into trouble again. Sometimes, even though he fled, he got in trouble because here is Mr. Potiphar. Who is he going to believe? His wife or this man? Joseph did the right thing. He left his coat, but he kept his morality. And I want to say that while he got into prison, if you were to be put in prison for something that you did not do, transform that prison cell into a haven of respect and positivity. You see, because God was with Joseph even when he was in prison, because the God we serve moves in a mysterious way, his wonders to perform. But suppose Potiphar's wife had not propositioned Joseph. He never would have been put in prison. Never would have been met the butler and the baker. He never would have been called to the palace where he was instrumental in saving his family and so forth. At this very moment in your life, it may be that something is twisting and turning and taking a turn for the worst, and maybe you feel that you are in a pit. You don't know what tomorrow holds. Even if you are feeling down, remember that you will rise. You will arrive at your palace experience. See, Paul in Colossians chapter 1, 16 to 18 says that everything was created by God, and for him all things are held, by him all things are held together. So he knows what's happening in your life. In your pit experience, don't look for pity. Because the problem is that when you look at pity is that which weeps and walks away. Someone will come to visit you in jail and say, well, I'm so sorry. Or they'll send you a letter and say, I'm sorry to hear. But they just walk away, they go back home, eat their dinner, have their lunch, do all their things to forget about you. They have a pity on you. Pity is when you watch the television, you see what's happening around the world to all these refugees, and you see people and these boats that are traveling in almost like modern slave ships these days, and people are dying in the hundreds, and you say, oh, it's such a shame, and you just continue to eat your breakfast or your lunch. Pity. I felt sorry for that father in court this week, whose daughters had been abused by this Dr. Larry Nassar, the former Olympic gymnast, physician. I felt sorry for him because, I could just picture, his daughters, his precious daughters had been, this man who was supposed to be caring for them had done such evil to them, and he begged the judge, just give me 5 minutes. She said, no, we can't do that, not at all. She said, just give me 1 minute. And I can imagine, and when she said no, he just lounged at us. And if he didn't give him, if he had I tell you, there was no jail time for that doctor if he didn't give 1 minute. because he would have been 6 foot under. But you can imagine how the man must have felt. And so he didn't want anybody's pity. What the opposite of pity really is compassion. Because you see, in pity, we look at all the things that are happening around us. And sometimes we forget that we as parents, as teachers, as pastors, we must empower our children, our students, to be as assertive as they can be, to prevent any kind of abuse in our homes, in our churches, in our schools, or in our workplace. We must rise above the silence that for far too long has been allowing perpetrators of sexual assault to go free, while the victims remain in a pit of shame. We don't want pity, we want people to take action. The Me Too movement reminds us that it's time for us to stand up and say, enough is enough. Yes. And so there needs to be compassion. You know, the Good Samaritan demonstrated compassion. Opposite of pity. You see, compassion comes to help and to stay. Pity just weeps and walks away. And today I say to anyone who has been put in any type of pit, remember there is a pit only temporary. It is not your final destination. Remember that when you are down to nothing, God is up to something. Like a rubber band, it has to be stretched to be useful. Like a tea kettle that's full, it sounds good, but it's whistling. Like a wheelbarrow, you push it. Won't work unless you push it. We should remember that in your pit, there is potential. Don't get accustomed to being in a pit. Position yourselves for higher heights and greater things. If you're in a pit, consider the next step to be your promotion. See, one day, Joseph went from prison to the palace. And one day, Daniel went from Daniel the dream interpreter to Daniel the prime minister. And one day, David went from being shepherd to be the king of Israel. You may not like where you are, but it could happen that in one day, and that day could be today, and you could move out of the pit into the palace. You know, as I watched that race in the children's story, you realize that losers will focus on what they're going through. But champions focus on what they're going to. Listen, there is no victory without a battle. There will be no sunrise without a sunset. And the bright morning comes after a dark night. And at the end of every tunnel, there is a light. But I ask you now, what is your reaction to others who are in their pit? Do you blame them? Do you say, it's your fault, it serves you right, if you hadn't done this, this would not have happened to you? Or do you lend a helping hand to lift them out of the pit? Some people blame Joseph for being too brash, too boastful, too proud. Why would he in any way tell his brothers, I dreamt that you bow down to me? Why would he tell his parents, I dreamt that you worship me? How dare he speak about his dreams in such brash terms, like his brothers and his mother and father bowing down to him? This young whippersnapper needed to be taught a lesson, some people would say. He should have known better, some might say. If he'd only listened to his brothers, this would not have happened. Maybe it was his father's fault for making him a multicolored jacket. Daddy should not have demonstrated in such obvious ways that Joseph was his favorite son. No wonder Joseph's brothers threw him into a pit. How do you treat people in a pit? God provides for each one of us, and he provided for Joseph a dry pit. It could have been full of water if it was a rainy season. But it was a dry pit, no water, no rainy season. And so big brother Reuben had plans to rescue Joseph. Judah, younger brother, had plans to do so also. Lest you and I forget, your reaction to others in a pit determines God's reaction to you in your pit. Forgive me as I forgive. That's what the Lord's prayer. So the best thing to do is to help somebody rise out of the ashes of their despair and encourage them to keep on rising. Amen. That is one reason why we need strong black leaders in our church and in our community. We need men and women, according to Ellen White, who says the greatest one of the world is the one of men and women. People who will not be bought nor sold. People who in their right, in their inmost souls are as true and honest, who do not fear to call sin by its right name. People whose conscience is as true to duty as the needle to the pole. People who will stand for right, though the heavens fall. And so my challenge to us today is to help somebody else to rise out of their pit. And when you're put in a pit, remember that those in control of the pain of today don't control the pleasures of tomorrow. Your tomorrow, our tomorrow, described by the Apostle Paul in these terms. He says, eye has not seen, nor ear heard, neither has it entered into the hearts of men the things that God has prepared for those who are in their pits now, if they love Him. Your enemies will come bending to you, according to Isaiah 60, verses 14 to 20. They will say, forgive me, I didn't mean it. Your enemies will recognize the fact that God has lifted you out of your pit. So when you're in a pit, Satan may use the closest person to you to hurt you, like Demas hurt Paul or like Judas hurt Jesus. But remember that you can never win a spiritual battle by logic. God stripped Joseph of everything to get him to the palace. And I'm sure that he couldn't understand why. But when you're in your pit, don't pretend that you're not in a pit. When you're in a pit, if somebody threw you there, forgive the person who hurt you and threw you there. When you're in a pit, stop complaining about that pit and try to see how you can find a way out of the pit. You know, when I look at some of the names of Joseph's sons, he had a son named Manasseh, the firstborn, and it means God will cause me to forget. Ephraim, his second son, means that God made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. So the pit experience was not coming up again. God can't make you fruitful until you forget. We cannot dwell in the past. We learn from the past. God's favor was strong to Joseph, and everywhere he was, the word was said that God was with him. In the pit, in Potiphar's house, in prison, in the palace, wherever he went, God was with him. Some things we cannot understand, but we must trust God. You know, you and I don't know if you ever understand how a black cow can eat green grass, give white milk that makes yellow butter. But just to eat the milk, eat the butter or the cheese that it's made. Without understanding, faith takes hold of them. I think when we come to situations where in our pit we think that things are impossible. Somebody told me some time ago that if you spell the word impossible differently, you'll get I'm possible. Right. Right. So God makes it possible when it seems impossible. You know, a little boy one day was walking along, and as he noticed there's a small gap that opened in a cocoon that he saw there on the side. And through this cocoon, a butterfly was trying to come. And so the boy was looking, and he stopped to watch how the butterfly was trying to get out of the cocoon. It took a long time, so he said, let me try to help. And so there's wriggling, and so he took his penknife and he cut the cocoon. And the butterfly immediately got out, but his body was weak and feeble, and his wings were barely moving. And the boy continued to watch the butterfly, thinking that now its wings would spread and it would fly. But it didn't happen. For the rest of its life, that butterfly had to drag its weak body and wings that weren't spread. It was unable to fly. Why? Because the boy didn't realize that in an effort to enter through this narrow gap from the cocoon, it was necessary for the butterfly so that the life-giving fluid would move from the body to the butterfly's wings, and that the butterfly would then be able to fly. So life forced the butterfly to leave its shell hardening so that it would become stronger and would be able to grow and develop. But the little boy stopped that from happening. If we are allowed to live without meeting difficulties, we would not be viable. Life gives us challenges to make us stronger. So with that strength, we indeed can rise. However, God won't do something great in your life unless you desperately seek Him. You must desperately want to rise and to change. I have to throw in a little bit of stewardship on this one, because I noticed that when Joseph was there in his position as Prime Minister, and there are some very important points to remember. One, in Genesis 47, it says Joseph was seed conscious. And Joseph gave seed to the people to plant. And Joseph expected a harvest, so he brought all the land and the whole known world of Pharaoh during the famine. And so the seed was planted, the seed grew, and difficult to understand how it happened, but that's what happened. It grew and grew and grew. And Joseph practiced systematic benevolence. How do I get this out of the story? You see, he made the people give back part of the harvest to the source of the harvest. Good stewards, okay? Joseph had everybody give back 20% to Pharaoh. Genesis 47:25. Read it if you don't believe me. And it says that Joseph, we must give back to God in tithes and offerings. You see, if we're going to rise as a church, we have to do what's necessary. We gave our first fruits this morning. We give our finances to show that, we're not suffering from the cancer of greed. We must wait for the harvest of blessings, and we must wait patiently. Joseph waited, God blessed him. Put your seed in the anointed hands, Malachi 3, bring it into the storehouse, God's church. God blesses it. Remember in the life of Joseph, as we think about it, that trials will come, but God controls every situation. And so, when we think about the butterfly, the struggles are there, and we have to get through them and become stronger. Greatness to God, greatness in His sight, comes through obedience to Him. Be obedient to the Spirit of God in the circumstances that you are, and you will find yourself in the palace. God wants to give us, you and me, things that we haven't built, lands that we've never seen, things that are out of this world. So we cannot give up. We cannot stop being dreamers. As I close, Black History Month must be more than a time set aside to honor Afro-Caribbean, African-Americans, and those who made contributions in Canada and around the world. During Black History Month, there is a greater awareness, there should be a greater awareness of the achievements and the successes and the contributions of our great statesmen, Afro-Caribbean and others. But I believe that the Church of God, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, must be the church that stands for right and truth and justice. And during Black History Month, we should do that. Look, this past Tuesday, we buried Milton Saunders, one of our great pioneers in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. The week before that, we buried Brother Dobson, another great one. Milton and Ivor Saunders could have told us about the times that their family accommodated a small group of Caribbean Adventists in their homes, and how out of the little acorn grew a mighty oak tree. Yes. Joseph knew about small beginnings. So remember that in your life, in my life, like in the life of Joseph, trials may come as they may, but remember that God controls every event in your life. What defines us is how well we rise after falling. There was a slide previously with the new president of Liberia, George Bongwea. I remember him because when we lived in Nigeria, he was a soccer player in his youth. And I remember the last time I saw him before we left when Liberia beat Ghana to qualify for the World Cup way back then. And George Weah became a famous football player. Went through a lot of struggles because he came from a place in Monrovia called Claratown, where it's a slum area. But all of that came a man who became a world-class footballer. Now football meaning soccer. And 2005 he decided he wanted to give up soccer now and run in politics. But one of the things, the challenges that George Weah faced was that he did not have enough of a formal education that he should have. So he went back to school, finished his high school stuff, went on to a master's degree, MBA. And just over a month ago, he was elected president of thy beard. You see, you can go from the pit of Clara Town, if you know that, to the palace of the executive mansion. And you can go from the pit of this earth to the palace where God wants us to go. And so Black History Month cannot be celebrated without noting the great contributions of black churches and black leaders. But we must not forget, and I'm so glad that as a church, we are cognizant of the fact that we must allow God to lead us out of our pits. Because you see, we cannot afford to quit. We must rise above our circumstances. It was Maya Angelou who said, "You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise." Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Because I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in the living room? Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hopes and springing high, I still rise. And then she says, "Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from the past that's rooted in pain I rise. I am a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise into the daybreak that's wondrously clear. I rise, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the spade. I rise, I rise, I rise." Years ago, Dallas Holmes wrote the beautiful song, "Go ahead, drive the nails into my hands. Laugh at me where I stand. Go ahead, say it isn't me. The day will come when you will see, because I'll rise again. Ain't no power on earth can tie me down. Yes, I'll rise again. Death can't keep me in the ground. Go ahead, mock my name. My love for you is still the same. Go ahead and bury me, but very soon I will be free, because I'll rise again. Ain't no power on earth can tie me down. Yes, I'll rise again, because death can't keep me in the ground." You and I can rise. We too can rise, because the one who makes us rose again. The God we serve, He's alive and lives forevermore. Stories told that one day when death and hell, or the grave, made a pact. There on that crucifixion Friday, death said to hell, death and hell. Death said to hell, "If I take this Jesus, put him on the cross, let them crucify him. He will die, and I'll take him down on the cross, and I'll give him to you, and you put him in the grave." He says that after 3 days he'll rise again, so keep him for 4 days. And so on that Friday evening, when they took Jesus off the cross, death handed him over to the grave, to hell, and they sealed the tomb. But then went by the tomb later in the evening and said, "Hell, you have him?" Hell said, "Oh, yes, we've got him. We've even got the Romans to put a seal around the tomb. There's no way he's getting out of here." Saturday morning, death went back to the grave. He said, "Grave, hell, have you got him?" He said, "Oh, yes, we've got him. We've got him sealed here. He's down, he's dead, he's wrapped up, he's mummified. There he is, he's not getting out of here." By Saturday evening, death went back again and said, "Hell, I'm making sure. Do you have it?" "Oh, yeah, don't worry, we've got it. No problem, we've got it." The story says that early on the Sunday morning, death went back to the grave. When he got there, he noticed that the stone was rolled away. And very shy and timidly, he got close to the entrance and he said, "Death, have you got it?" There was no answer. He walked in a little further and he said, "Death, do you still have it?" And there was no answer. He said, "Death, do you have it?" And a voice came back from way inside. He said, "Well, it was like this. Early this morning, there was a blinding flash from glory. An angel descended, and when he hit the ground, a stone rolled away. And he got up, he folded his grave clothes, and he walked out. And just to add insult to injury, he looked back over his shoulder and he said, 'Oh, death, where is thy sting?'" He's in the world today. I know that he is in no matter what men or women, politicians, anyone will say. I see his hand of mercy. I hear his voice and cheer, and every time I need him, he's always here. He lives. He lives. Christ Jesus lives today. He walks with me. He talks with me. And he tells me that I'm his own. And today, you might be in a pit. A pit that seems to be having all kinds of things covering you over. And you want to say, preacher, pray for me that I can get victory over this pit. Maybe an emotional pit, a financial pit. It might be a pit of your children and your spouse, and it's some pit that you just find you're down and can't get out. But today you want to say, preacher, I want to get out. Pray for me. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Okay, like you stand. Stand with me. And if somebody who's raised their hand today, you want to say, preacher, I need a touch from the Lord. I need a special prayer. And I'm going to invite you to walk right down to the front. Just walk right down. I'm going to meet you down the front. Oh yes, let's go on down. I'm going to pray with you today. Maybe you've never really thought about the pit you're in. You know it's not something you like. But today you say, Pastor, pray for me. I want to get out of this pit. I'm falling down. So as we pray together, don't leave before you fill out one of these cards. Our ushers will have them somewhere for us, and they'll get your card. So you can just sit to the front when we finish praying. Father in heaven, the pits of life are so many. The challenges are so great. The world seems to be pressing down upon us and throwing dirt on us and trying to bury us in our pits. But Lord, we thank you that we are not people of the pit, but people of the palace. And so help us to see our potential to get out of the pit. Whether it be a financial pit for those in it today, provide for them the means to survive and to get out of that pit. Some emotional pit, help them, Lord, to turn to you, because you said, let this mind be in you which was in Christ Jesus. You told us that we can have that mind which overcomes, and we don't have to suffer any longer by abuse or anybody, but we can stand and be strong in you. Father, wherever that situation has led us, whatever that pit may be right now, we ask that through the power of your Spirit, you will touch each person who has come forward, and those who are standing where they are. Help us to remember that, like you helped Joseph out of his pit, you can help each one of us And as you told us in your word, eye has not seen, neither ear heard, neither has it entered into the hearts of men and women the things that God has prepared for them that love Him. Help us to know that better days are ahead of us. And so during this Black History Month, give us enough positivity, enough assertiveness, enough courage, enough fortitude, enough spiritual discernment to know that as we walk with you and talk with you, you would tell us that we are yours and there's nothing impossible for us. So where we find discrimination, where we find hatred, where we find oppression, where we find that people try to get at us, help us to remember that we serve a risen Savior. He's an overcomer. And because He rose, we too can rise. So rise, we will. Conquer, we will. Because victory is ours. Bless each family, each home represented here today. When we leave here, may we know that we have been with Jesus. May we leave committed to continue to allow Jesus to stay with us, to serve Him faithfully until that great day when He comes. When all of us can say, Lo, this is our God. We have long waited for Him, and He will save us. Lord, keep us faithful until that day, because we ask it in the name of Jesus. Amen and amen.